Runner video drum lessons for Thursday, December 7th, 2006. My name is Darren Mathis. Thanks for watching. This week I received a comment, actually a couple comments at unirunner.com about setting up the drum kit. So I'll talk about how I set up my drums first. I also got a couple of questions about what kind of drums I have and cymbals, so I'll go over the drum kit, my drum kit real quick. The toms and the kick drum are Pearl Prestige Session Select. They're the SRX series, which I bought about 10 years ago, and it's in walnut burnish. I actually have a tom over here that I don't use that's a 12-inch tom, but this rack tom up here is 10 inches across by 10 inches deep. Got a floor tom here that's actually just on a stand. It's not, doesn't touch the floor. It's 14 inches across by 12 inches deep. This low floor tom, which you can't see, is 16 inches across by 16 inches deep. The kick drum is 22 inches by 16 inches deep. The snare drum here is 14 inches across by 5.5 inches deep, and it's natural finish, gloss. I think I mentioned the others are walnut burnish finish. The cymbals, here I've got a K Zildjian Ride that's 20 inches. Here is a K Custom Dark Crash 16 inches or 17 inches. Here is a China, it's a China High 16 inches. Here is a Custom 10-inch Splash. Over here I've got a 16-inch Zildjian, which I actually got from my high school because they were throwing it away. It had a crack in the side here, so I took it to a music store, and they cut the side off here so it's actually flat on one side. Then I just smoothed it out with emery cloth and steel wool. So I've had that one for a long time. And then over here I've got the 14-inch top or 14-inch New Beat hi-hats. All the hardware is Pearl hardware, except for the kick drum pedal is the Drum Workshop 9000 series double pedal. The hi-hat stand is the 9000 series as well. My drum throne that I'm sitting on is Drum Workshop throne. So I hope that kind of covers it. The mics here are Shure SM57s. I've got AKG C1000S's overhead and some sort of AKG mic in the kick drum. I don't remember exactly which one that is, but so if you go to unirunner.com, there's some comments there. Feel free to post your own or respond to some of the comments that other people have posted. This one came from Steven, which I printed out. It says, "Hi there, I just started playing drums and really enjoy your podcast. I found on iTunes it's extremely helpful for people like me who are self-learning to be able to visually see you demonstrating the techniques." Well, thanks, Steven, for the comment. He says, "Thanks for providing this. I was wondering if you would consider doing a podcast on setting up the drum kit for beginners like me who put their kit together themselves. I didn't have any reference aside from the diagrams on the net. A visual of your podcast would be extremely helpful. Thanks again for the great show." Thanks again, Steven. Okay, as far as setting up the drum kit, there's really no set rules. I mean, if that's one thing I've found playing other people's drums over the years, that there's really no set rules. It's just whatever's comfortable to you. And like I mentioned on the last podcast, as far as technique, it's the same way with drum kits. There's no improper way or bad way to set up a drum kit unless it's hindering you or keeping you from playing your best or expressing yourself as you would like. But that being said, I would say my drum kit is set up pretty typically, because lots of times if I go and play a show or a gig where I'm playing someone else's drum kit, I usually don't have to adjust the drums too much because they're kind of set up in a very standard fashion. I play right-handed. Actually, I'm left-handed, but I learned to play a right-handed drum kit, thank goodness. Otherwise, I'd have to be moving the hi-hat over here and switching everything around, kind of like Phil Collins does with his drum kit. So I usually start off by setting up the kick drum first, and I'll usually set up the hi-hat cymbal or the hi-hat stand next. So I'm starting out with placing the kick drum pedal and the hi-hat pedal at a distance that are comfortable from one another. And I usually like to have the hi-hat cymbal in pretty close. For a lot of people that play double kick drum pedal or double kick drum, they end up having the hi-hat way out here, but I like to have it right next to the snare drum, so I don't have to reach too far out because I like to play the hi-hat a lot. So what I've done here with the double kick drum pedal, I've got the auxiliary or the left pedal of the double kick drum pedal to the left of the hi-hat stand. And so I get those two situated so that my knees are a comfortable distance apart. And then I usually put the snare drum in between that, kind of usually exactly in between the kick drum pedal and the hi-hat pedal. And then as far as how high I get the snare drum, I like to have it at a height where I can easily come down and play a rim shot, and I'll adjust it sometimes from slightly tilted back to pretty much flat or parallel with the floor for the top. If it's parallel with the floor, it's easier to play a rim shot. Some people will even tilt it forward a little bit, and I'll try experimenting with that from time to time. This rack tom here, I like to have that a comfortable distance from the snare drum. The degrees of variation on angle of toms is pretty wide. Lots of times people will have them almost flat, and that's kind of difficult for me to play, just my style, because I sit kind of low. Also, I should mention, when you're adjusting your throne, that's probably one of the first things you're going to want to do too, as far as besides adjusting your pedal distance, is adjust the height of your throne, and you can experiment with that. I like to sit pretty low just because I started out with a throne that was adjustable but not terribly adjustable, and one of its main settings was pretty low to begin with, so that's just kind of how I got used to playing. But especially if you start, your back starts hurting or you're finding it's hard to reach things, experiment with the height of your seat. And so since I sit low, I have the tom angled slightly this way. Some people will take an even more of a aggressive angle on it. I like to angle it just far enough so I can reach up and comfortably or quickly from the snare, and I won't hit the rim. Over here, like I mentioned, I have another tom, but I've taken it out for now just because I like to have the ride cymbal right here so it's comfortable. I don't have to reach way up here to play the ride, since I end up playing the ride cymbal quite a bit. These toms here are about the same. The floor toms over here are about the same height. I try and get them the same height as the snare drum. And I try and keep everything in a comfortable distance so I don't have to reach too far. I don't have to fully extend my arm in any direction to hit any of these instruments. Even my farthest instrument, I still don't have to fully extend my arm to reach it. That way, if I just keep things this way, I'm usually able to play things pretty quickly, and I can actually probably just close my eyes and play the drums too, because I know where everything's set up. I've gotten used to that. Also, once you get your drums set up, I did a podcast on touring tips where Matt from Phineas Gage shared his touring tips, and he talked about having a drum rug where you mark out where all your stuff is on the drum rug with tape once you get it there, so that way next time you set it up, you can set it up quickly and everything's going to be in the same spot for you every time you play. Let's see. Cymbal height, that really varies too. I like to keep them in a comfortable distance, like I said. Maybe if you're playing a live gig where you want to be flashier, you might raise them up because it's might be kind of visually striking to kind of reach up there and smack the cymbals. No, John Blackwell has a cymbal that has like a China cymbal behind him up on a huge boom stand, so when he's playing he can reach up behind himself and smack that cymbal, and just kind of visually cool. So that might be something you want to experiment with your cymbals, just strike a balance between being able to play them still and having it look cool, because looking cool is always an important element, as Tommy Aldrich would say if you ever watch any of his videos. He's always talking about it's important to sound good, but it's also important to look cool. Of course, I don't try to look cool too much anymore, since I'm just mainly playing gigs around town and here in my basement, so that's not that important for me. So like I said, it's individual preference. Try other people's drum kits, maybe go to the music store, see how they have things set up too. Lots of times, problems you might run into, my toms are standard sizes, like this one is 10 inches deep. You can get 10-inch toms that are a lot shorter, so you're able to adjust, so I have to raise the arm that it's mounted up on quite a bit to get it up so it doesn't rest on the bass drum. You don't want your toms to rest on the bass drum because that's going to deaden the sound of both the bass drum and the toms, and it might damage the finish too. That kind of defeats the purpose of having an isolation system. Like this one has this ISS mounting system that just clamps onto the rim so that the tom will resonate as freely as possible. So you don't want anything touching that because that'll defeat the purpose. So especially if you have toms that are even larger than this, you might have to raise your seat up to be able to get on top of them because there's only so low that you're going to be able to get your toms. Unless you mount it on a separate mount or angle the arm over far enough that you're able to get the tom off to the side here, then you'll be able to lower it some more. But if you've got two toms that you want right next to each other on top of the kick drum, that can be a challenge sometimes, especially if those toms are larger. So you might have to raise up your throne or something like that. And then you end up raising everything else up too. But the key is to experiment and do what's comfortable to you. And you'll find that if you start one way, your body will adjust to that too. Lots of times things might start off feeling sort of awkward, but after you get used to them, they just become natural. As far as especially like when you start playing, sometimes just keeping your posture upright. That might not come natural, but after you work at it a while, it's just second nature. And the same way with setting up your drums too. You just kind of naturally adapt to however you have your drums. So Stephen, thanks for that comment. And once again, you can add comments or check out other comments at unirunner.com. I want to say a special thank you to Michael Fletcher, who sponsored this week's podcast. Also, I want to mention you can reach Unirunner on the web. If you want to contact me through email, you can do so at info@unirunner.com. Also, through the end of December, if you want to go to unirunner.com, you can be entered to win a Steve Smith DVD set, a John Blackwell DVD set, 4 pairs of drumsticks, and a drum music book from Hamar Percussion Publications. All you have to do is go to unirunner.com, take a PodTrack survey. If you scroll down the page, it's listed there. There's instructions on what to do after you take the survey to be entered into the contest. And that'll go through the end of December of this year, 2006. And at the end of December, during the podcast, I'll select a name at random to win those items. Thanks again for watching. If you have a couple minutes and want to support the podcast, go to iTunes and you can leave a review for the podcast. I'd really appreciate it. Otherwise, take care. Until next week, keep practicing, and God bless.